Have you felt it lately? That subtle pressure inside your chest, that strange sense that something is shifting, even though nothing on the outside seems different? If you are Gemini, this feeling is not random. Gemini is the sign that feels change before it happens, before events unfold, before words are spoken, before doors visibly close or open. And right now, something is moving beneath the surface of your reality. This is not about chaos. This is not about losing control. This is about transformation. The universe does not change Gemini's life loudly. It whispers first, through restlessness, sudden insights, unexpected endings, unusual encounters, and moments of silence that feel heavier than noise. Gemini energy is being redirected, refined, and tested. You may notice your thoughts speeding up, then stopping completely. You may feel drawn to new paths while old interests suddenly lose their meaning. You may feel emotionally detached one moment and deeply sensitive the next. This is the paradox of Gemini duality, and right now that duality is being activated for a reason. As an air sign, Gemini lives in the mind. But what happens when the universe begins transforming your reality through your thoughts? When your Gemini mind becomes the gateway to something greater. These unexpected changes may look small at first, almost invisible, but each one carries a hidden purpose. A conversation that changes your perspective, a delay that protects you, a sudden ending that frees you, a realization that cannot be undone, a choice that feels uncomfortable but necessary. This is not punishment. This is alignment. During this cycle, Gemini is being asked to release outdated versions of itself. Old identities, old patterns, old ways of communicating, loving, and reacting. And yes, that can feel unsettling for a sign that thrives on movement and possibility. But transformation does not come to destroy Gemini. It comes to elevate it. If you've been feeling different, if your intuition feels louder than logic, if your curiosity is pulling you towards something unknown, then stay with me. Because in this video, we will uncover 5 unexpected changes that may bring transformation for Gemini, changes that may redefine your direction, your purpose, and the way you see yourself. Watch closely. Listen deeply. Some messages only reveal themselves to those who are ready to hear them. Have you been feeling restless lately? Like something is shifting inside you, even though you can't explain why? Have you noticed that your thoughts feel sharper, heavier, faster, all at once? If you are Gemini, this is not random. Gemini is one of the most misunderstood and mentally powerful signs of the zodiac. And right now, Gemini energy is entering a phase of unexpected internal change, the kind that transforms you from the inside out. To some people, Gemini looks indecisive. To others, unpredictable. Some say Gemini changes too much, while others admire how Gemini adapts so effortlessly. But what most people don't see is this. Gemini doesn't change because it's unstable. Gemini changes because it perceives reality faster than others. This contrast between appearance and essence is where the real transformation begins. In this video, you're going to discover 5 unexpected changes that may bring transformation for Gemini. Not surface-level changes, but psychological, emotional, and energetic shifts that directly affect your choices, relationships, and sense of direction. Each change builds on the next. And by the final one, you may understand why this phase feels so intense and so necessary. Before we dive in, take a second to support the channel. Subscribe, like the video, and stay connected, especially if Gemini content resonates with your life right now. A change in the Geminian mind. The first transformation doesn't happen outside. It begins silently, in the place where Gemini has always been most powerful, the mind. Suddenly, thoughts that once flowed effortlessly begin to slow down. Ideas that used to excite lose their shine. Old questions return, but now with a different weight. Gemini realizes they can no longer accept superficial answers from others or from themselves. This change in the Geminian mind is not confusion. It is reorganization. As an air sign, Gemini lives in the realm of perception, language, and logic. But when the universe decides to transform Gemini, it starts by stirring exactly there. Old mental patterns, inherited beliefs, and repeated narratives begin to be questioned. What once made sense now feels limited. What was once certainty turns into doubt. And this can create restlessness, anxiety, and even a certain mental fatigue. In many moments, Gemini may feel like they are thinking too much. But in truth, they are thinking more deeply. This phase brings a heightened awareness. Gemini begins to notice nuances that once went unnoticed, hidden tones in words, intentions behind silences, inconsistencies in stories that were always accepted as truth. The mind becomes more critical, more selective, and, because of that, more solitary. Here is the difficult side of this change. Gemini may feel disconnected from empty conversations, shallow environments, and automatic routines. What once stimulated now bores. And this can create a feeling of not belonging, as if the world were operating on a different frequency. But the positive side is powerful. This mental shift opens space for real clarity. Gemini begins to filter better what they consume, what they believe, and with whom they share their intellectual energy. The mind stops being just fast and curious and becomes strategic, conscious, and aligned. It is at this moment that Gemini begins to understand something essential. Not every thought needs to be followed, and not every idea deserves to be fed. The Geminian mind learns to pause, to observe, to choose. This transformation prepares Gemini for greater decisions that will come later. Because before changing paths, relationships, or purpose, the universe needs to ensure that the mind is clear enough to see the truth. If you are a Gemini and have been feeling this mental shift, this silent restlessness, this intellectual fatigue mixed with lucidity, know this, it is not a blockage. It is the beginning of your reprogramming. The mind that once ran in every direction is now being trained to focus. And when Gemini learns to direct their mind, they become unstoppable. Emotional distance with purpose. After the mind begins to change, something equally subtle and often misunderstood happens in the emotional realm. Gemini does not become cold. It does not become indifferent. What occurs is a conscious retreat, a strategic distancing that serves a greater purpose. Gemini has always felt deeply, but in a quiet way. As an air sign, Gemini tends to process emotions through the mind before expressing them. In this phase of transformation, that mechanism intensifies. Impulsive reactions give way to observation. Automatic responses are replaced by pauses. And this can feel strange, both for Gemini and for the people around them. Suddenly, Gemini no longer engages in every drama, doesn't enter every discussion, doesn't react to everything that is said. To those observing from the outside, it may seem like coldness, but on the inside, it is emotional discernment being built. This distancing arises because Gemini begins to understand something essential. Not every emotion needs to be absorbed, and not every energy deserves direct access to their emotional field. The sign that was always open to dialogue now learns to close doors, not out of fear, but out of maturity. The difficult side of this change is guilt. Gemini may wonder if they are becoming too distant, less empathetic, less available. They may feel like they are losing connections. But in reality, they are reorganizing emotional priorities. With this retreat, Gemini begins to see relationships more clearly. People who drain energy become obvious. Bonds based solely on habit begin to lose strength. And whatever no longer supports emotional growth naturally fades away. The positive side is profound. Gemini develops real emotional intelligence, learns to respond instead of react, to listen without losing themselves, to be present without self-sacrifice. This new balance allows for healthier, truer, and less chaotic connections. At this stage, Gemini also learns that protecting their emotional space is not selfishness, it is self-awareness. Silence stops being an escape and becomes a tool. Distance stops being abandonment and turns into a boundary. If you are a Gemini and feel more emotionally reserved, less available for conflict or excess, understand this. It is not closure. It is inner strengthening. This distance prepares the ground for more aligned bonds in the future. Because when Gemini learns to choose where to place their heart, they stop fragmenting and begin integrating. And an emotionally conscious Gemini does not lose themselves in others. They find themselves within. Unexpected endings. Not every transformation begins with a new beginning. Some begin with an ending, and for Gemini, those endings often arrive without warning. Conversations that once flowed simply stop. People who were part of the routine drift away. Plans lose meaning from one day to the next. And the most unsettling part, there is no major conflict, no clear explanation, no dramatic closure. Just silence. For a sign that lives through communication, this can be deeply uncomfortable. Gemini always believed everything could be solved with words, that every relationship could be adjusted through dialogue. But in this phase of transformation, the universe teaches a different lesson. Not every cycle closes with answers, some close with acceptance. These unexpected endings do not come to punish Gemini. They appear because certain bonds, ideas, and paths have already fulfilled their purpose. Keeping what has lost meaning would require too much effort, too many explanations, too much energy. And Gemini is learning, perhaps for the first time, that not everything deserves to be sustained by habit alone. The difficult side of these endings is the sense of emptiness. Gemini may wonder if they made a mistake, if they said too much or not enough. They may mentally replay every detail, trying to find the exact point where everything broke. But the truth is simpler and deeper. Nothing that ends in this phase is aligned with who Gemini is becoming. These endings force mental and emotional detachment. The need to understand everything begins to be replaced by the ability to let go. And this does not come easily for Gemini, who has always sought meaning in every connection. But that is precisely where the transformation happens. The positive side of these silent endings is liberation. When something leaves without drama, it creates space. Mental space, emotional space, energetic space. Gemini begins to realize how much they were carrying connections that no longer represented them. Old ideas, repeated conversations, relationships based on past versions of themselves. And when these endings arrive, even though they hurt, they bring clarity. Gemini learns that not every ending is rejection. Some are protection. Others are redirection. This change teaches one of the sign's most mature lessons, knowing how to walk away without needing to explain everything. Trusting that silence also communicates. That distance can be an act of self-respect. If you are a Gemini and have been experiencing unexpected endings, people disappearing, paths closing, interests fading, do not resist. These endings are not taking something away from you. They are returning you to yourself. And only when Gemini learns to release what has ended do they become light enough to receive what comes next. A new relationship with your own identity. After the unexpected endings, silence appears. And it is within this empty space that Gemini begins to look at themselves in a way they may never have before. For a long time, Gemini built their identity in motion. Through conversations, exchanges, ideas, and social roles. There was always something new to explore, someone new to meet, a different version of themselves to try on. This was never falseness, it was adaptation, curiosity, social intelligence. But now something shifts. Gemini begins to realize they no longer fully recognize themselves in the versions they created to please, to fit in, or to survive. The question stops being, who am I for others? And becomes, who am I when no one is watching? This transition can be uncomfortable. Without the old labels, Gemini may feel a temporary emptiness, as if they are between identities. Neither the person they were before, nor yet the person they are becoming. And for a sign that values definition and mental clarity, this phase of uncertainty can generate anxiety. But this emptiness is not loss. It is fertile space. This new relationship with identity is no longer based on performance, approval, or external response. Gemini begins to align with internal values, with choices that make sense even when they are not understood, with paths that do not need constant explanation. Here, Gemini's duality stops being conflict and becomes integration. Gemini understands they can be multiple without being fragmented, that they can change without losing themselves, that they can evolve without abandoning their essence. This understanding brings a different kind of security, not rigid, but conscious. The difficult side of this change is letting go of old identities that once brought comfort, roles that provided belonging, masks that offered protection. Releasing these versions can bring grief. After all, they were real for a time. But the positive side is liberating. Gemini begins to live with greater authenticity. Saying no becomes easier. Choosing less obvious paths no longer brings guilt. The need to explain diminishes. And little by little, a quieter, stronger, truer identity emerges. This new relationship with the self allows Gemini to recognize themselves beyond the opinions of others. They stop defining themselves by external reactions and begin defining themselves by inner coherence. If you are a Gemini and feel like you are changing but can no longer clearly explain who you are, trust this. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself without needing labels. And when Gemini builds their identity from the inside out, no one can fragment them anymore. Alignment with purpose. After the mental reorganization, the emotional distance, the unexpected endings, and the redefinition of identity, something finally begins to fall into place. The internal noise quiets. The rush loses its grip. And for the first time in a long while, Gemini feels direction. This alignment does not appear as a clear answer or a perfectly drawn plan. It shows up as a quiet sense of coherence, a calm certainty, a feeling of this makes sense that does not need external validation. Gemini has always searched for purpose through multiple paths at once. Parallel ideas, endless possibilities. But in this phase, the mind that once scattered begins to converge. Not because Gemini lost curiosity, but because they learned to prioritize meaning. Alignment with purpose happens when Gemini realizes they no longer need to chase everything. Some choices stop feeling urgent. Others, which once seemed risky, now feel inevitable. The sign begins to act less from external stimulation and more from inner resonance. The challenging side of this shift is responsibility. When everything aligns, there are no more excuses. Gemini understands they already know what needs to be done, and that requires courage. It requires letting go of distractions, relationships that delay growth, and paths that merely fill time. Purpose demands focus. And focus has always been a lesson for Gemini. But the positive side is deeply liberating. This alignment brings stability without rigidity, movement with intention. Gemini begins to feel whole, not divided. Duality stops pulling in opposite directions and starts working in favor of the same path. At this stage, Gemini also realizes that purpose is not a final destination, but a state of consciousness. It is the way they choose to think, speak, create, and relate to the world. Everything begins to reflect who they truly are, not who they tried to be. Life may not become easier, but it becomes more honest. If you are a Gemini and feel that something is finally aligning, even if you don't yet know exactly how everything will unfold, trust that feeling. It did not come by chance. It came from the sum of all the transformations that came before. When Gemini aligns with their true purpose, they stop living in reaction to the world and begin to build their own direction. And an aligned Gemini does not get lost in possibilities. They choose and move forward with awareness. Every change becomes less external and more internal. Less about circumstances, more about consciousness. Gemini realizes that true transformation was never outside. The so-called instability of Gemini is, in truth, evolution. What many call inconsistency is adaptation. What looks like confusion is intelligence reorganizing itself. Transformation does not arrive to slow Gemini down. It arrives to teach Gemini how to move with purpose. And when Gemini understands this, there is no turning back. If this message found you, it was not by chance. Nothing reaches us without a reason when the universe decides to speak. If, at any moment in this video, you felt these words touch something within you, confirm that you received this message by writing 0202 in the comments. This number is a sign of alignment, awareness, and transition. I want to deeply thank you for being here, for listening until the end, and for allowing this energy to reach you. Your presence is part of this purpose. And if you feel this content resonates with your journey, join our channel. Subscribe, activate the notification bell, like this video, and share it with someone who also needs to hear this message right now. When you connect, you strengthen this current. And together, we stay attentive to the signs of the universe.